They threw me out like garbage. Then years later, they showed up at my door begging for help. But by then, I had already learned the hardest lesson of my life. Sometimes the people who destroy you share your last name. I am Monica, and this is how my entire family betrayed me, lost everything, and finally realized too late that I was never the weak one. When I was 24, my family sat me down in the living room like they were preparing for an intervention. Except the problem wasn't drugs, it was money, specifically my money. My father had lost his business after years of terrible decisions. My older brother Aaron was drowning in gambling debt. My younger sister Mia kept quitting jobs because every manager was toxic, and my mother believed emotional guilt should qualify as financial currency. Meanwhile, I was the only stable person in the family. I worked 2 jobs through college, became a software engineer, and finally started making good money. Nothing outrageous, but enough to rent a nice apartment and breathe without panicking every month. Apparently, that made me the family ATM. Dad leaned forward first. "Families survive together," he said. That sentence should have come with a warning label. They wanted me to take out a massive loan in my name to save Dad's failing business. I refused. Not because I didn't care, because I had already emptied my savings twice, helping them before. Both times, they promised things would change. Nothing ever changed. Aaron still gambled. Mia still floated through life like responsibility was contagious. Dad still made reckless decisions while calling himself an entrepreneur. And Mom? Mom specialized in guilt the way surgeons specialize in organs. "You're selfish," she whispered at the dinner table. That one hurt, because I'd spent my entire life sacrificing for them. I paid Mia's tuition once, covered Aaron's rent secretly, helped Dad with payroll during the pandemic, bought Mom medicine when she hid health bills from everyone. But somehow the second I finally said no, I became the villain. Things escalated fast after that. Mom started crying to relatives about how I abandoned the family. Aaron called me a greedy corporate robot. Mia posted vague quotes online about betrayal. Then Dad delivered the final blow. "If you won't help this family," he said coldly, "then maybe you shouldn't be part of it." Silence. Real silence. The kind that changes your DNA permanently. A week later, I came home from work, and my key didn't fit the front door. They had changed the locks. My suitcase was sitting outside, like I was garbage waiting for pickup. I still remember standing there in the rain, holding a plastic bag full of clothes while neighbors pretended not to stare. Nobody answered my calls, not one person. That night, I slept in my car, and something inside me died permanently. For the next 4 years, I rebuilt myself from absolute zero. I worked insane hours, learned new skills, switched companies twice, eventually joined a startup early that exploded in success. The girl who once cried in a parked Honda became someone nobody recognized anymore. I bought my own condo, started traveling, went to therapy, built friendships that actually felt like family, and most importantly, I stopped needing people who only loved me conditionally. Then one evening, my phone rang. "Mom, first time in 3 years." I almost didn't answer. Almost. The second I picked up, she started crying. Dad had suffered a stroke. The business completely collapsed. Aaron owed dangerous people money. Mia had moved back home unemployed with a baby, and they were losing the house. I listened quietly while staring out my condo window at the city lights. Then came the sentence I knew was coming. "We need your help." Not, "We miss you." Not, "We're sorry." Not, "We were wrong." Straight to need, like always. Mom asked if I could pay the hospital bills and help save the house temporarily. Temporarily. Funny word. In my family, temporary always meant forever. I drove to the hospital the next morning anyway. Not because I forgave them, because I needed closure. Dad looked 20 years older, weak, fragile, smaller somehow. For a second, my anger cracked. Then Aaron walked in. "You finally decided to show up," he sneered. Still arrogant, still ungrateful. Mia avoided eye contact entirely. And suddenly I realized something horrifying. None of them had changed. They still saw me as a resource, not a daughter, not a sister, a solution. Mom started explaining finances frantically. Numbers, deadlines, debt. Then she grabbed my hand. You're our only hope. And right there, something inside me became perfectly calm. I pulled my hand away gently. No, I said. The room froze. Mom blinked rapidly. What? No, I repeated. I'm not saving you. Dad stared at me like I'd slapped him. Aaron immediately exploded. So you're just gonna let your family suffer? I looked him dead in the eye. You already taught me how. Nobody spoke. Years of pain sat in that hospital room like smoke. Then Mom started crying harder. We made mistakes. Mistakes? Forgetting someone's birthday is a mistake. Throwing your daughter out like trash is a decision. I reached into my bag and placed something on Dad's hospital tray. A house key, my old house key. The one that stopped working the night they abandoned me. I kept this for 4 years, I said quietly. Just to remind myself never to beg people to love me again. Even Aaron went silent after that. I stood up to leave. Mom panicked instantly. Please don't walk away from us. I turned toward the door slowly. The difference between me and all of you, I said, is that when I was alone and homeless, I survived anyway. Then I left. And for the first time in my life, I didn't look back. Some families only love you when you're useful, but the moment you finally choose yourself, they call you selfish. This is shattered truth, where betrayal gets exposed and silent people finally reclaim their power. Stay close. The next story might feel painfully familiar,